Well, we are interrupting our regular programming, and this is the big breaking story coming in. We are awaiting the official order from the TRAI, that's the telecom regulator, but we are given to understand from highly placed sources that on the controversial and vexed issue of call drops, the regulator has found that the audit that has been conducted in Delhi and Mumbai has been deeply unsatisfactory. In fact, the regulator is not happy with the data, and in fact the regulator has decided that telcos must compensate consumers. A decision has been taken on the compensation. We are still awaiting the final clarity on what that will entail. In fact, this is a breaking story that's playing out exclusively on CNBC-TV18. This was, of course, along expected lines. Remember, telecom companies have been saying very clearly that it is because of cellular towers that are being brought down by various local bodies. It's a spectrum issue, but the regulator as well as the government has maintained that telecom companies are not doing enough by way of network expansion, and this business of spectrum shortage is a ruse. Let's start getting in reactions now. Kunal Bajaj, telecom analyst, also joins us. With us, Malvika Jain, our own colleague, and we will also be joined by Lakshman Roy, who's broken that story for us. Kunal, first reaction from you. We are still awaiting the final order, but the TRAI has essentially said that telecom companies must compensate for the controversial issue of call drops.
Hi, good evening. So I think everyone is expecting that to be going in this kind of direction. Yes, it still remains to be seen exactly what the compensation is going to be and how significant an impact that's going to have on telco performance. But, I don't tend to agree with the government from the perspective that this is completely this is completely the fault of telecom operators solely, that that lack of spectrum is a ruse, or that lack of infrastructure is basically just an excuse. I think all of these things play very closely hand in hand, so it's unfair to completely write that off. But I think we were expecting that, given the pressure and given the momentum that's been mounting around this, that the government was likely going to take some sort of stance to impose some sort of penalty, to be viewed as being much more customer friendly and putting some more pressure on the telcos to act in this domain.
Kunal, just hang in there. Let me bring in my colleagues as well. Malvika, who's been tracking the story along with Lakshman Roy. Malvika, to you first. As Kunal was pointing out, this was of course expected. We've seen the government go on the offensive against telecom companies, whether it's the telecom minister across public platforms and the finance minister as well, saying very clearly that telecom companies need to do a much better job of being able to provide services to customers, and if customers are facing call drops, then customers should be compensated, and that seems to be the position that has now been followed through by the TRAI.
Well, that's right. Like Kunal was pointing out, this is on expected lines. But what is interesting is that just recently the government had indicated that seeking compensation for telecom companies is going to be the last resort. But let me point out that according to sources, this is not a recommendation that the TRAI has made, but is an order, which in a sense would mean that this would be mandatorily applicable on all telecom companies. What is going to be the nature of compensation is something that remains to be seen. But all in all, after having conducted an audit in the metro cities of Delhi and Mumbai, the TRAI has come to a conclusion that this is not because of just towers or scarcity of spectrum that one is witnessing call drops. To some extent, probably telecom companies should be blamed and should be held accountable.
Malvika and Kunal, let me put to you the conversation that we had yesterday with Vittorio Calao, the global CEO of Vodafone, and pointed questions were put to Vittorio Calao. In fact, I specifically asked him, how does Vodafone respond to the allegations of the government that telecom companies have not invested enough when it comes to network expansion? And Calao's argument is, look, we've invested 80,000 crore rupees in India. We invest 8,500 crore rupees, and that does not include spectrum charges. 8,500 crores invested in capex annually in India. So they're not willing to take on board the government's suggestion that not enough is being done on network expansion. Does the truth lie somewhere in between, Kunal?
I think in any infrastructure play in India, particularly in telecom, which is so heavily used by consumers, it's always going to lie somewhere in between. It's a cooperation between governments and organizations that basically need to happen. So if we look at the way rules are formulated, policies are made in other parts of the world, in every other country in the world, there is a proper process which is followed for creating more spectrum availability in the industry. We know for a fact, you look at any benchmark anywhere in the world, and per operator, per population, per capita, any metric you want to use, we have the least spectrum in India compared to any other country in the world. We are obviously today, in particular, now starting to experience a surge in bandwidth growth, and that's only going to continue to make the problems worse because we don't have a fixed network in place in India that's able to handle broadband offload, and everything is now going to happen on wireless, and therefore demand is going to increase. So certainly, you're right, you can't just squarely blame one or the other. A lot of capex has come into India from the operators, and a lot more is needed for sure, but the answer does lie somewhere in between, like you're saying. It has to be a much better forum for cooperation to actually solve these problems.
Who do you see as being the worst impacted, Kunal, on account of this? I would imagine that it would be the large incumbents, companies like Bharti and Vodafone, that would perhaps be most adversely impacted on the back of this order.
Yeah, obviously, those who are going to have the largest volume and the highest subscriber base are going to be the ones impacted the most. The smaller companies who tend to have more spectrum to support a smaller base of subscribers are clearly, going to be in a better situation because they have the capacity and the spectrum made available to them to handle their subscriber base. Even some of those guys obviously are hurting as they grow as well and as they start supporting more data. But the largest guys, Vodafone, Idea,
Lakshman is coming
Airtel.
for the call, sir.
Right, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So clearly those largest guys are going to be the ones that will be impacted the most significantly. And I think it also will come down to what TRAI finally puts into the order of what the penalty is going to be. If it's going to be essentially the compensation of the minute of the call that gets dropped, that may not have as big of a revenue impact as everyone thinks, and it may not be as big a penalty. It may be enough to push the telcos to think more seriously about it, but I won't see it massively impacting, or it should not massively impact stock movements and things like that, because the financial impact will be limited. So we'll have to wait to see what TRAI finally says.
Okay, just hang in there, Kunal. I've also got TV Ramachandran joining us of the Cellular Operators Association of India. Mr. Ramachandran, appreciate you joining us. We are still awaiting the official order, but this is source-based information that we are picking up, that an order has indeed been passed by the TRAI saying that telecom companies must compensate customers for the call drop issue. This has, of course, been a controversial issue. You've been battling against the government as well as the regulator on this front. How would you respond?
Thank you. I'd first like to state that I'm talking as chairman of the ASSOCHAM National Telecoms Council, not as of cellular operators.
My apologies, sir.
No problem. First point is, it's agreed that the issue of call drops is something which is severely impacting customers. We agree on that as ASSOCHAM. But from ASSOCHAM, we believe that there are multiplicity of causes. There is a multiplicity of causes for this, not limited to one or two and not limited to only operators. It's due to several other agencies also. So if there is going to be an issue of not charging for the portion of the call that is dropped, and here we must bear in mind that I think most calls are now on a per second basis. Keeping that in mind, if we are still not going to charge, fine, the customer is given a fair treatment. But then,
if I may interrupt you, sir, because even on that front, there has been a disagreement between cellular operators as well as the TRAI, because in its consultation paper, the TRAI had noted that only 59% of mobile consumers pan-India are on a per-second billing tariff plan, while Telcos said that number was actually as high as 71%.
No problem. See, I'm sure the TRAI figures must be right. But when I say more, it's a majority, say 60% or 70%, whatever it is. I will go by that. But what I'm saying is that there is a multiplicity of causes and a multiplicity of agencies, not just operators. It may be the local authorities who prevent cell sites from running or shut down or not give sanctions for new cell sites where needed. Without that, you cannot have good service. So there may be various agencies, various causes. So if the customer is not going to be charged for that, well enough, if that is so, the debit must go to the appropriate authority, the causative factor or the authority. So it will be unfair to debit everything to the operators. So the operators have a limited role in some cases, very limited role.
Sure. If I can request you to just hold on for a second, Mr. Ramachandran, because our colleague who broke this story, Lakshman Roy, joins us now. Lakshman, appreciate you joining us. What are you hearing from your sources? This is an order that the telecom regulator has passed, and we are, of course, waiting official intimation now.
जी बिल्कुल आपने सही कहा। जो टीआरआई की तरफ से औपचारिक घोषणा ऑफिशियल ऑर्डर है वो आना अभी बाकी है, लेकिन हमें सूत्रों से पता चला है कि आज दोपहर में टीआरआई में एक अहम बैठक हुई थी और उस बैठक में यह फैसला लिया गया कि जो भी कॉल ड्रॉप होगा उस कॉल ड्रॉप के एवज में कंज्यूमर को टेलीकॉम कंपनियां मुआवजा देंगी। मुआवजा क्या देंगी इस बात का खुलासा हमारे सूत्र ने अभी नहीं किया है, क्योंकि अभी यह ऑर्डर जाएगा गजट नोटिफिकेशन के लिए, वहां से नोटिफिकेशन होने के बाद औपचारिक ऑर्डर जारी किया जाएगा। लेकिन यहां महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि जब कंसल्टेशन पेपर जारी किया गया था तो 3 विकल्प दिए गए थे मुआवजा का। पहला तो ये कि 5 सेकंड तक अगर कॉल ड्रॉप हो जाता है 5 सेकंड से पहले तो उस कॉल का कोई चार्ज नहीं लिया जाएगा। उसके बाद अगर कॉल ड्रॉप होता है तो 2 रास्ते हैं। एक रास्ता ये कॉल ड्रॉप हुआ तो उसके एवज में आप पैसा दीजिए कंज्यूमर को। दूसरा रास्ता ये हुआ कि अगर कॉल ड्रॉप होता है तो आप कंज्यूमर के अकाउंट में क्रेडिट कर दीजिए एक कॉल को, ताकि दोबारा जब कॉल करे तो उसके एवज में से कॉल मिल सके। इस फैसले की पीछे असली वजह यह थी कि टीआरआई ने पिछले दिनों जो सर्वे किया था दिल्ली, मुंबई समेत 5 शहरों में, सर्वे में यह पाया गया कि पिछले लगातार सरकार की हिदायत के बावजूद कॉल ड्रॉप की समस्या में कोई सुधार नहीं आया है। हालात बदतर की बदतर बनी हुई है, लिहाजा कॉल ड्रॉप पर मुआवजा वाला शर्त लगाने के अलावा कोई चारा नहीं है।
All right, Lakshman, appreciate you joining us. Mr. Ramachandran, you've heard what our colleague Lakshman had to say. We are still awaiting the final details of that TRAI order. Let me recap for you what Lakshman was pointing out, and that the TRAI has basically said that through its audit, it has found that there has been no improvement that has been made as far as the issue of call drops is concerned, and hence this may have been the last resort, but it is the resort of choice at this point in time for the telecom regulator. It sees no way out of the current situation. It's also become a political hot potato with this issue being brought up even during the election campaign, for instance, in Bihar, Mr. Ramachandran. It looks like the government has decided to bite the bullet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't really understand what is being conveyed. I'm unable to comment on this at this stage.
Right. Kunal,
how
practical is...
My main comment is that if there is any issue of call drop and not charging for it, for that portion of the call, it is only fair that the appropriate authority, appropriate agency factor is debited for that, not have everything dumped on the operators, who have only a limited role in this. An important role, but limited role only. So that is what I would say as such.
Okay. Kunal, how practical is it going to be able to implement this order, to your mind?
So, I think the implementation of, say, partial minute refund is possible, but I think I understood somewhere in between that there was also the refund of the entire call and the call drop piece. Now, I think we have to take a step back and say that how does a base station or how does a telecom operator actually know a call is dropped? And though there's lots of instances of poor quality or a missing voice or delays or not being able to connect, I think consumers put everything of those sort into this bucket of call drop. But those aren't actually a call being physically dropped. So what this is going to do, unfortunately, is it may result in a situation where consumer call volume to customer care and things like that just really starts to skyrocket because they're bucketing everything into a bucket which is not supposed to belong there. And this could really be a nightmare from a customer service perspective for telcos to try and manage all of this. But, like I mentioned earlier, until we know the specific rules, I don't know exactly how much financial impact it will have, but certainly it will have a customer service nightmare impact.
Customer service nightmare impact. But Mr. Ramachandran, do you see this headed to the courts? Do you believe that that is perhaps where this battle is now going to move to?
I don't know, because I'm not associated with the operator industry. So from an asset point of view, I can
What would your gut tell you, sir? What would your gut tell you?
I don't know. See, there could be disputes, but I don't know whether it will move to courts and all that.
Okay, let me get Malvika to comment on that. Malvika, where do you see this battle headed now?
Well, from time to time, telecom companies have come out in the open and said that this matter will probably have to be sorted out by the courts because firstly, identifying call drops, like Kunal was pointing out, is a big challenge. Then to compensate the consumer is another challenge, and then to satisfy the government that the consumer has been compensated is going to also be a problem. But let me point out that there are existing telecom companies like Telenor which are compensating customers, so maybe they could be an example for other companies to follow.
All right. Kunal and Mr. Ramachandran, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18 on this big CNBC-TV18 news break. We are still waiting to see the final order, but as Malvika was pointing out, it's important for our viewers to understand that this is not a mere recommendation from the telecom regulator. This is now an order that is awaiting official Gazette notification. This is an order from the telecom regulator saying that on the issue of call drops, the regulator finds that telecom companies must compensate customers. This is a story that broke right here on CNBC-TV18, and we will continue to track the developments after this quick commercial break, so stay on with us.